Hello, it is now 3 p.m. Eastern Time. You have joined the 2020 Justice and Mental Health Collaboration Program Orientation Part 2. To allow for additional signees to sign in, we will be starting this webinar in a few minutes. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining today's 2020 Justice and Mental Health Collaboration Program, commonly referred to as JMHCP Orientation Part 2 webinar. Today's webinar is Part 2 in the two-part series of the required orientation sessions and is focused on an overview of the JMHCP's budget, grants management, and performance measurement requirements. I'm Demetrius Thomas, and I oversee the JMHCP Training and Technical Assistance at the Council of State Governments Justice Center. I will be moderating today's webinar, which is hosted by the U.S. Department of Justice Bureau of Justice Assistance, BJA. To give you an overview of today's webinar, first we will do introductions of our panelists, a refresher on the Bureau of Justice Assistance in the Council of State Government, or CSG Justice Center. Then we will hear from Nakisha Love from the BJA Program Office to discuss budget and grants management, followed by James Stye, who will give an overview of the Performance Measurement Tool, or BMT. BMT is the required reporting for the JMHCP grant. At the end of the webinar, we will have time for questions and answers. Anytime during the webinar, you can ask the question by typing it into the Q&A panel on the bottom right-hand portion of your screen. This includes both technical and content-related questions. We will try to reply to technical questions in the chat window as we go. For the content-related questions, we will keep a running list and address them at the end of the webinar. We will do our best to go through as many questions as possible. If you encounter technical or audio problems during this webinar, please call WebEx Technical Support at 1-866-229-3239. Please understand that there are some technical issues that we will not be able to resolve. We are recording the webinar and will post it on the CSG Center website. Maria Fryer, Justice System and Mental Health Policy Advisor for the Bureau of Justice Assistance at the U.S. Department of Justice, oversees the Justice and Mental Health portfolio and collaborates with CSG Justice Center to assist state, local government, and behavioral health organizations to better understand the relationship between the criminal justice system, mental health populations, and to help create policy and programming that meets the needs of municipalities and citizens they serve. Fryer previously worked at the North Carolina Governor's Crime Commission, where she advised the Governor's Office on effectively addressing the needs of victims of violent crime. In addition to working with families overseeing violence and instability in Coffee County, Alabama, Fryer has worked in community corrections in Fayetteville, North Carolina, helping to develop intermediate and community-based sanctions for repeat offenders with drug addiction. She also served in the United States Army as a member of the Military Police Corps. Nikisha Love, State Policy Advisor for the Justice and Mental Health Collaboration Program at the Bureau of Justice Assistance for the Office of Justice Programs with the U.S. Department of Justice, has been with the Department of Justice Office of Justice Programs since 2008. She is a Grants Management Specialist for the Bureau of Justice Assistance Office. In this role, she manages and provides guidance in the administration of the Justice and Mental Health Collaboration Program grant funding, Adult Drug Court ADC grant funding, and the Justice Assistance Grant JAG grant funding. Mr. Love has a strong financial background and has been managing formula and discretionary grant programs for over 16 years. She first started administrating grants with the Department of Health and Human Services in the Office of Grants Management as a Grants Management Specialist, where she managed over 300 grants for the Office of Community Service and served as a lead specialist for the Assets for Individual Development Account grant funding program and for the Compassion Capital Fund grants. Jimmy Stye is a senior research associate with Carnival Associates and brings nearly 15 years of experience in the criminal justice field, conducting criminal justice research and data collection, specializing in law enforcement crime data, performance measurement and management, and data analysis. Mr. Stye has been advising the Office of Justice Programs Performance Measurement Tool contract for over 9 years, where he has held multiple positions, including project manager, deputy project manager, and senior research associate. In his current capacity, Mr. Stye is the Deputy Task Lead for Performance Management and Data Analysis on the Bureau of Justice Assistance Task Order, where he provides technical and analytical support on multiple programs, including drug court, residential substance abuse treatment, comprehensive opioid abuse site-based, prescription drug monitoring, and justice and mental health, among others. Previously, Mr. Stye worked for the Montana Board of Crime Control as the Director of Statistical Analysis Center and statistician, where he oversaw the Montana Incident Board Reporting System, as well as authored, contributed to, and oversaw several reports related to crime, victimization, and juvenile justice. I am Demetrius Thomas, the Deputy Program Director, and oversee the Justice and Mental Health Collaboration Program, technical training, and assistant grantees. Prior to joining the Justice Center, I worked at the New York City Department of Health and Mental Hygiene, where I led several initiatives at the intersection of criminal justice and mental and behavioral health, including establishing the city's first ever diversion centers, co-response, and multiple crisis teams. Thanks to you all for joining the webinar. Now I return things over to Maria Fryer to talk a bit about the Bureau of Justice Assistance and the Justice and Mental Health Collaboration Program.
Well, thank you very much, Demetrius, for that introduction. And hello, everyone. Again, my name is Maria Fryer, and I'm a policy advisor for the Justice and Mental Health Collaboration Grant Program. And I am happy to be back with you here today. And as mentioned a few weeks ago and just recently, although I've been at BJA for 6 years, I come from over 25 years of justice and human services program administration at the state and local level. And I've served in many of the same programs as many of you on the call today. And once again, glad to have you back today for this very important orientation focused on managing your grant program. And as you can see, overall, considering everything that we've shared in this orientation so far, what we're really trying to achieve are better outcomes for people with mental illness and co-occurring substance use disorders in the criminal justice system. And specifically, we're looking to enhance law enforcement responses and reduce the prevalence of people with mental illness in jails, and how to think through the best way to address high utilizers of multiple systems and improve access and connection to community-based behavioral health care. So I'd like to talk a little bit now about the Bureau of Justice Assistance. And at the BJA, our mission is to provide leadership and services and grant administration and criminal justice policy development to support local, state, and tribal justice strategies to achieve safer communities. Specifically, BJA provides funding to support law enforcement, combat violent and drug-related crime, and combat victimization. And through the development and implementation of policy, services, and sound grant management, BJA strengthens the nation's criminal justice system and restores security in communities. So far, you've heard a lot from me and about the role of the policy office, but also within BJA is the programs office. And together, we will work hand in glove to assist you in the planning and implementation of your program. And today you'll be hearing a lot more from them, the programs office, on the programs office side. So to tell you a little bit without stealing their thunder, the programs office manages the individual awards that each of you have received. And as such, you'll be assigned to a grants manager, either Nikisha Love or Tammy Lovell. And Nikisha or Tammy will be your contact within BJA with support from Eric Dietrich, Division Chief, who can answer all of your questions pertaining to the allowable costs, management of the award, and reporting. You will hear from Nikisha and learn much more about their work very soon in this webinar. So I'd like to talk now just once again a high overview about the JMHCP. And the goal of JMHCP grant program is to develop collaboration across the criminal justice and behavioral health systems from law enforcement, pretrial, courts, jails, and community supervision to learn how to have successful partnerships that increase efficiencies and improve public safety and outcomes for people with mental illnesses or co-occurring mental illness and substance use disorders in the criminal justice system. So now I'd like to turn it back over to Demetrius to talk a bit more about the CSG Justice Center, the history of JMHCP, and to discuss the training and technical assistance providers' role. Thank you for being with us today. Demetrius?
Thanks, Maria. I'm going to give some background on the Council of State Government CSG Justice Center. The Justice Center is a national, nonprofit, nonpartisan organization that combines the power of a membership association representing state officials in all three branches of government, with the expertise of a policy and research team focused on assisting others to attain measurable results. Our staff develops research-driven strategies to increase public safety and strengthen communities. This slide describes a bit more about our work and how we strive to reflect Justice Center core values, which include a commitment to being independent and nonpartisan in every aspect of our work, providing vigorous, trusted, high-quality analysis, developing practical and innovative solutions informed by data and research, promoting collaboration and building consensus, and being inclusive and respectful of diverse views and experiences. As the training and technical assistance provider for JMHCP, we are here to help your grant be a success.
So it sounds like Demetrius Thomas might have cut off. This is Sarah Wurzberg from the Council of State Government's Justice Center.
Hello, can you hear me? Sir, can
there
you
go,
hear me?
Demetrius. Yep, you are back.
My apologies. As the training and technical assistance provider for JMHCP, we are here to help your grant be a success. You will receive a TA coach who will help support you in reaching your grant goals. If there are changes to your grant programmatic design or budget issues, we will discuss it with you and refer to BJA as needed. We help provide BJA with information on grantee progress and update them on the grant work happening throughout the country. We hold monthly calls with BJA programs and policy offices to make sure we are on the same page. Your TA coach will be reaching out to you soon. If you have any questions before then, please feel free to contact me, and I will do my best to answer your questions. I will now pass it over to Nikisha Love to discuss the budget and grant management piece.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Nikisha Love, and I'm the grant manager for the Justice and Mental Health Collaboration Program. At this time, I would like to say congratulations to all of the grantees who have received FY20 grant awards. Today, we will discuss the overview of everything concerning special conditions, reporting, financial information, procurement, subawards, subrecipient monitoring, federal reporting requirements, grant award modification, grant monitoring compliance, additional information and resources. Next slide, please. Special conditions. As you all know, every grant award is entered into the form of a legal agreement between your agency and the federal government. It is important that you review and understand the terms of the agreement, which will include specific conditions you are responsible for adhering to. In management and implementation of the award, some special conditions are applied to all awards. This slide has a link to the standard conditions applied to all FY20 OJP awards. Next slide, please. Withholding special conditions. Withholding conditions place 100% hold on funds for pending budget approval. Other program requirements, including documentation that was missing or incomplete during grant application review. You could have multiple 100% holds on funds due to more than one issue. All of them will need to be removed before you have access to funds. In addition, there is a withholding condition for completion of the P&I guide. You will only have access to $100,000. That is approved. That is provided all of the 100% conditions have been met or removed. Until completion of the planning phase and BJA approves the guide, your state policy advisor, myself, or Ms. Tammy LaVille, can provide you detailed information on what is needed to remove these withholding special conditions. Next slide, please. Match requirements. The Justice and Mental Health Program has an escalating match requirement, which is defined on this slide. Note that if the grant eventually receives a project period extension, you may need to revise your budget to meet the higher match rate. If your application budget did not include the appropriate amount of match, it was flagged for correction during the budget clearance process, which we will talk about in the next slide. Regarding match, any committed non-federal costs must meet the same rules for being allowable, reasonable, applicable, just as federal funds. Cash or in-kind match is acceptable. Cash match means any cost your organization pays through its budget accounting system. For example, your agency's salary, fringe, supplies, and etc. The cost should be based on actual costs incurred and must be documented. In kind, third party. Match is any cost another agency or individual contributes towards the project. For example, volunteer hours or another agency's salary, etc. There must be documentation to support how the value was derived. Next slide, please. Budget clearing process. Your budget must be approved, cleared by both BJA and OJP's accounting office, OCFO. OCFO could not fully review budgets prior to award notification. Due to the JustGrants transition, they are delayed in reviewing FY20 budgets, but have begun to do so. Your BJA state policy advisor will contact you once OCFO has reviewed the budget, and if they have any comments, you will need to submit a revised budget to address them. Upon final review, the withholding special conditions for the budget will be released. Note that this only applies to the OCFO financial hold. There may be other holds related to programmatic conditions that BJA applied during its review of the application, which will not be removed until you address whatever the issues, questions were as we discussed earlier. Next slide, please. Progress reporting requirements. You will submit quarterly performance data in the PMT system. The PMT team will discuss this in greater detail later. Progress reporting requirements. You will submit semi-annual performance reports in JustGrants. Until further notice, this will consist of attaching the PMT report to the report in JustGrants and submitting it. We understand the duplicate system can be burdensome. Regarding the final report, we expect to see discussions of the final status of the project goals objectives for the entire reporting period. If this is not evident in the final PMT report, you will need to submit additional narratives in the final JustGrants report. Just a note that this is important to be timely on your report. Overdue reports will result in a hold on funds and increase your chances for being selected for in-depth monitoring. Next slide, please. Federal financial reporting. This slide details the quarterly financial reports that must be submitted in JustGrants. Note that the listed deadlines do not account for the extensions currently given due to the JustGrants transition for active awards. Your first FFR will cover the October 1 to December 31st quarter and will be due by January the 30th of 2021, unless that period is extended also. This will be posted on the JustGrants site if so. As with progress reports, an overdue FFR will place a hold on funds and increase chances for being monitored. Next slide, please. Grants financial management training. This slide details the requirements related to one of your standard special conditions for the grant award administered and financial manager. If different people to complete a training within 120 days of award acceptance. Next slide, please. Subawards and procurement contracts. It is important for you to properly categorize subawards versus procurement contracts in your budget. I'm not going to read all of the text, but it explains that there are critical differences between the two that impact grant administrative requirements. For example, a procurement contract requires full and open competition, while a subaward does not. Next slide, please. Subawards and procurement contracts. You should carefully review the resources linked on this slide. And if there is any questions on how you should categorize a particular cost, consult with your agency's legal counsel. Next slide, please. Training and technical assistance. As the award recipients are required to monitor the performance and compliance of all sub-recipients. Just as OJP, BJA must do with all our direct grant recipients. The previous slide has links to full details on what this entails. This summarizes the minimum required, which means that if you all have sub-recipients or you consult any type of work out that's being paid through the grant, you are required to monitor your sub-recipients and make sure that you all have monitoring policies on file. Thank you. Next slide, please. The FFADA reporting, which is the Federal Funding Accountability and Transparency Act. Recipients must report all subawards over $25,000 or more via the FFATA subaward reporting system within the end of the month following the date of the subaward agreement. Next slide, please. Grant award modification, which is now the new name and acronym GAM. Changes are sometimes necessary for a given grant-funded project. Some changes you can make on your own without prior approval required. Some changes require prior approval per the uniform guidance, the DOJ Grant Financial Guide, or the solicitation or statute for the particular grant program. This slide lists common types of GAMs where prior approval is required. Consult with your state policy advisor should any questions arise about changes to your project. So this slide gives you an overview. Okay, thank you. Where we can do grant modifications, budget modifications, change of scope, project period, sole source, programmatic costs, and costs reoccurring prior approval. Thank you. Next slide, please. Also, I wanted to point out, prior to submitting any GAMs, if you have any delinquent reports, your GAM will be sent back until all reports have been up to date. So grant award modification. Change of project period, no cost extension. The uniform requirements in OJP policy generally limit grant to one project period extension, not to exceed 12 months in duration. It must be requested at least 30 days in advance. Cannot be requested only to extend remaining funds, which means that you should not submit a request to extend the program just because you have funds remaining. And the recipient must not have any serious performance or compliance issues. Exceptions can only be granted for extraordinary circumstances outside of the recipient's control and must be approved by the BJA director and OJP CFO. Please note, the aforementioned justice and mental health escalating match requirement, an extension may require you to increase your non-federal match amount. Next slide, please. BJA Compliance Monitoring. BJA is required to monitor the performance and compliance of your award through the life of the grant, to include day-to-day interactions, reviewing progress reports, talking to you, and through all the information we have about the status of your award. We also conduct targeted monitoring. We conduct desk reviews on 100% of our active awards each physical year. The BJA SPA may contact you if questions arise or action is required as a result of this desk review. Additionally, BJA SPAs conduct in-depth monitoring, either remotely or in person, on a certain percentage of our active awards each year. We use a risk tool and other methods to identify the awards we will monitor each year. If we monitor your award, you will be required to submit documentation, set up a phone call or visit, and conduct interviews, answer questions related to the grant. BJA will then issue a final report on the outcome to include listing any issues for resolution. There is a special condition requiring your participation. Just as I had mentioned before, like we monitor you, it's the same that you all have to monitor your subrecipient. Next slide, please. BJA Compliance Monitoring. This slide lists common issues that we identify during monitoring and that requires resolution. Occasionally, resolution will involve returning funds to OJP or, in rare cases, suspension, termination of the award. In most cases, they can be resolved without additional documentation and or updates to your agency's policy. So please read this slide right here just to get familiar. And you also see unallowable costs and all of those things to make sure that your budgets do not include any of those. Thank you. Next slide. Additional information. Generally, if you are responsible administering a federal award, you need to know the program-specific, department-specific, and federal-wide guidelines for those awards. BJA's program-specific guidelines are available on our website under the specific program pages, which will include links to the most recent solicitation and usually FAQs and other resources that are regularly updated. DOJ's grant requirements are found in the DOJ Grant Financial Guide, and the federal-wide requirements are found in the recently updated Uniform Requirements Codified Act 2 CFR Part 200. Next slide, please. Other important links. Here are some other important links related to our system and reporting requirements. Next slide, please. This slide here lists myself and our new grant manager, Tammy Lavelle, who has taken the place for Tracy Lee Williams. If you all have any questions, please reach out to myself or Tammy. All the states are listed within this slide, our email contact, and our phone numbers. At this time, thank you. I would like to pass it back over.
Great, thank you, Nikisha. This is Jimmy Stye, and we'll be discussing the performance measurement portion of this webinar. So this new grantee orientation will cover several topics related to performance management at the Bureau of Justice Assistance. We will discuss requirements for data reporting, including what you need to report, where reporting happens, when reporting is due throughout the year, and how to report that data. Specifics around your program and your respective reporting questionnaire will include the future revisions to measures will also be discussed. We will share some data reporting and goal setting best practices to set you up for success. Finally, we will share contact information and resources for you to get in touch with us if you need assistance. Next slide, please. Performance management is a process by which grantees regularly collect data on their grant activities to determine whether they are implementing activities as intended and achieving their desired goals and objectives. Using performance measures that capture inputs, outputs, and outcomes over time enables pre- and post-comparisons that can be used to assess change. BJA has established performance measures or questionnaires for each grant program. These measures were included in the original solicitation that you responded to. We will also review the specifics of your program's unique questionnaire during this orientation. You can find additional information and several resources on the Office of Justice Programs, Grant, Performance Management, and Progress Reporting Information portal at the BJA Performance website listed. Next slide, please. Performance measures have many purposes and benefits to your program and for BJA. They allow BJA to look at your program holistically as well as at the local level to identify areas of success as well as potential opportunities for improvement. This allows BJA to target training and technical assistance resources to subjects or localities that need them the most. Furthermore, BJA routinely receives data calls or requests, sometimes from Congress or the White House, and relies primarily on the data provided by grantees during the reporting periods to respond to these inquiries. BJA and OJP regularly track progress towards goals and reports annual key performance indicators to leadership during budget formulation, as well as ongoing yearly monitoring. Lastly, the Department of Justice is required to comply with the reporting requirements of several federal laws, including the Government Performance and Results and Modernization Act, and the Digital Accountability and Transparency Act, or the DATA Act, and finally the GREAT Act, which is the Grant Reporting Efficiency and Agreements Transparency Act of 2019. Next slide, please. Not only does BJA benefit from performance measurement, but there are many benefits to grantees and your program. You should be systematically monitoring performance measures to include some of the data BJA collects, as well as your own programmatic data to help identify success as well as areas for continuous improvement. Monitoring performance measures can help you proactively address challenges and generate evidence that you are meeting your goals. This can lead to sustainability and continued resource advocacy for your program. The data you collect has a potential to show the impacts not just of your program, but of your organization. Next slide, please. Now let's talk about the what, where, when, and how you will be required to report. We will review these each next. Next slide, please. There are 3 required sources of data that you will use to report: performance measures, narrative questions, and finally the closeout questions. The performance measure questions for your program are a series of questions that measure outcomes of grant activities and demonstrate the accomplishments of goals and objectives of your program. Grantees report on performance measures during each quarterly reporting period. A series of narrative questions related to the grantee's specific goals, objectives, barriers, and successes are also provided to grantees to be used for data reporting and are reported only in July and January. Finally, closeout questions are a series of questions grantees will need to respond to only when activities have been completed and the grant is ending. Next slide, please. The Performance Measurement Tool, or PMT, is an online data collection tool for OJP's grant recipients. It is structured as an online questionnaire and is available year-round. The PMT contains a lot of information and tools to assist you in your reporting. You can access the PMT by following the link on this page. If you are new to reporting, you should receive a welcome email with directions on how to create your account and access the PMT. As you already know, JustGrants is replacing the grants management system, and it will also replace the PMT in the coming months. Continue to report in the PMT until you are given directions on transition and are instructed how to report data directly into JustGrants. Next slide, please. This table outlines the type of data you will report during each reporting period, when your reports are due in the PMT, and whether you also need to upload your report to JustGrants. As you can see from the alternating values under the second column, you'll only report on the narrative questions in January and July and during your last reporting period of grant activity, regardless of where that falls on the schedule. As you can see from the table, the PMT is only open for data entry during the month after the reporting period closes. The PMT is accessible year-round for you to review and edit your data, generate reports, and more, but you will need to contact the PMT help desk to help you unlock reports when you need to revise previously completed reports. Again, note that reports are due 30 days after the end of a reporting period. Next slide, please. In order to submit your PMT report to BJA, you will need to create a PMT report or a PDF report, previously known as the GMS report. Note that as of October 15, 2020, the GMS was replaced with JustGrants. The PMT report, however, will continue to have PMT GMS report at its title. Regardless, the report will be uploaded to the performance reporting module in JustGrants. Next slide, please. The PDF document will need to be generated and saved on your local computer so that it can be uploaded to JustGrants with your regular semi-annual report. When creating your report, you will be given a chance to leave any comments about your data submission that you feel are relevant. Additionally, you will need to make sure you respond to the narrative questions prior to submitting each semi-annual report. Next slide. In order to prepare for the data you will need to collect for performance measure reporting, you will need to review the JMHCP Performance Measure Questionnaire. You can find it at the link provided here. When the performance measures transition to JustGrants, a revised questionnaire will be posted ahead of time at the second link below that is provided on this page. Next slide, please. The categories of data collected in the performance measures are as follows: award administration and grant activity, award type, or in other words, the category of JMHCP award you received, site and project information, task force activities, training and technical assistance, and planning. Next slide, please. For grantees that are only doing planning or in the planning phase, you will answer questions related to the planning guide activities as well as planning and implementation of screening tools, if applicable. Next slide, please. For awards that are to law enforcement entities, questions specific to policies and procedures and specialized training are included. We also ask questions about calls for service, field assessments, and screening for mental illness, as well as the disposition of those who are involved in a mental health crisis. Next slide, please. For those grantees that are conducting analysis and research, we also ask questions regarding the data sources you are collecting and measuring and how you are measuring program impact, if applicable. Next slide, please. For those grantees that are providing or linking individuals to services, you will be reporting data related to program participants. The types of services include case planning, mental health screening and treatment services, substance use or co-occurring services, employment, education, housing, therapy and counseling, medication-assisted treatment, and other medical or psychiatric services. For those participants that are enrolling in and or completing specified services that are defined as a program, we define that as program completion. Next slide, please. Finally, when you have completed your grant program, spent down your funds, and are ready to close out, we have some specific closeout questions related to important outcomes for the JMHCP program. Please make sure to review these questions so that you can plan to collect this data throughout the life of your program. Again, you can get these questions from the link of the questionnaire provided in these slides. Next slide. Revised performance measures will be implemented in JustGrants in the spring or summer of 2021. More information will be provided in the near future. Next slide, please. Just as a preview, here are the scaled back categories of questions that will be in the revised questionnaire slated for JustGrants. They are award administration and grant activity, partnership activities, program overview, program description and target population, mitigating threats of targeted violence, recidivism, training and technical assistance, final report or closeout questions, and then finally narrative questions. Next slide, please. When responding to the narrative questions in the PMT, you will need to define the goals that you have for your program. Keep in mind, goals should be specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely. It is good practice to review your goals on a regular basis and reassess how you are doing. Make sure to use data to describe how you are doing, as well as anecdote that describes some of the good work you are doing. Next slide, please. Here are a few examples of well-defined SMART goals that will set this program up for success. While the goals on the right are great goals, they are difficult to measure and not specific enough to measure success. Next slide, please. We would also like to share some tips to improve data quality that your program can do from the very beginning. It is recommended that a designated staff person coordinate all performance measure data collection and entry to ensure consistency. This includes working with any subrecipients or service providers that are not directly part of your organization. If this is the first time you report data, make sure you are familiar with the data you will need to collect and report. Do this by reviewing the PDF version of the questionnaire and making a plan to collect the required data. Note that as you go through the questionnaire, not all questions are applicable to your certain situation, so make note of that. Ensure a backup person or persons are aware of the data collection and reporting process so that they can fill in if the designated staff person is unavailable or leaves the role. Consider available data collection methods, including case management systems or other databases, spreadsheets, tracking intake forms, or other methods. If partner organizations are included in your program design, be sure to engage them from the start of the planning process. Determine if formalized agreements are needed to ensure the necessary data is collected and the program meets its goals and objectives. Next slide, please. Here is our contact information. for the PMT Help Desk if you need any assistance. And with that, I thank you for your hard work and dedication, and I will now pass it back to Demetrius.
Thanks, James. Now we will begin the question and answer portion of the webinar. We will respond to as many questions as possible in the time remaining. As a reminder, you can chat in your questions in the Q&A box at the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. Also, as we are taking questions, we will keep the slide on the information about the presenter contact information. Another reminder is that this webinar has been recorded and will be posted along with this slide deck on the Justice Center website. Right. Our first question, can someone please give an update on JustGrants issues? We still have not been able to accept and submit our budget. I'm going to pass this question on to Eric. Eric, can you answer this, please?
Hi, yes. I can answer this. I will try to. This is Eric Dietrich. I'm a division chief in the BJA Programs Office, by the way. And Tammy and Keisha they're on my team. I know there's a lot of issues with JustGrants. There are known issues which the JustGrants team is working to fix on an ongoing basis, which affect a lot of awards. And then there are specific issues that may be resulting from following the onboarding process, which is, to be honest with you, complicated and involves a lot of different steps, and doing the steps in different order can result in issues of not being able to see awards or not assignments being kind of mixed up. So I don't know what the situation is for what is going on this particular award. All I can say is that you can email your state policy advisor with your award, and we can try to take a look to see if we can identify it. But in general, there are a lot of glitches, and we're getting a lot of reports about folks not being able to access their awards, and there are ongoing fixes, with the system trying to resolve that. But again, if you send us your specific award number, we can try to look into it. It's difficult to forward you again to the help desks. We know they're overwhelmed. We know it's frustrating to keep back to them. We will try to do the best we can in assisting you.
Thanks, Eric. Our next question is, can in-kind match be a county state-funded manager? I think I'm going to kick this question to Nikisha. Would you be able to answer that?
Okay, I'm sorry. Can you say that again, Demetrius?
Sure. Can in-kind match be a county state-funded manager?
Eric?
Yes, state positions can be used as match for the program. Other federal funding, for example, other federal grants cannot be used as match, but state-funded positions can be used as you mentioned. That would be considered in-kind match if it's coming from the state.
Thanks, Eric and Nikisha. The second question, when will we get the P&I guide? I can answer that question. All grantees will receive their fiscal 20 P&I guide by the time they have their first purpose area orientation. If you haven't already, you should be receiving an email from your assigned TA coach who will be outlining that information, and or you will be receiving a direct invitation from them on your purpose area orientation. So at that time, given that orientation, you will be giving your P&I guide as well as walk through the areas of your P&I guide. The next question, I think I'm going to kick it to James. What is the scheduled date for receiving PMT access invitations?
That's a great question. If you are a new user, by new I mean you have never reported on any grant in the PMT before, you should receive an invitation email prior to January 1. If after Jan 1 you have not received any email, then please contact the PMT Help Desk and we can get you signed up right there. If you are an existing user but you do not see this award under your account, again, prior to January 1, you should see this new award under your account. Again, if you don't after January 1, so, January 2nd, 3rd, 4th, again, contact PMT Help Desk, and we will make sure that that award gets assigned under your account.
Thanks, James. Eric, I'm going to kick this next question to you. It's a bit of a two-parter. Is there an update on the JustGrants implementation system? Will there be a webinar training on JustGrants? The information that was given on the training doesn't necessarily correspond with what the users are seeing on the screen, so they wanted to know if additional training, webinar trainings will be given for the system.
Yes, they are constantly rolling out trainings and updating the trainings. I would recommend that you take a look at there is a page on the JustGrants public website for the trainings, as far as the news about the trainings, as well as resources, documents. I understand that some of the screenshots from the original trainings and maybe still up there are from a test environment, and so it looks a little different than what you're seeing in the system. Unfortunately, that's happened for our trainings as well as BJA users, which has added to some confusion and getting used to it. But be updating those, and also I believe they're going to be focusing more on trying to do more targeted webinars for specific users and trying to arrange those so you can get training. So I would refer you to that website, the training website, and they've been sending out pretty regular updates on the status of JustGrants in terms of onboarding and training. I believe they've been sending those out every 2 weeks, and those communications are also available on the JustGrants website.
Thanks, Eric. Nikisha, I think I'm going to kick this next question to you. Due to the issues that have been experienced by users in JustGrants, can our grant manager let recipients know if their grant is fully active?
Okay. So the question is asking, can myself or Tammy let them know if there are no issues with their grant?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. We can look through. So the grantee would need to reach out to myself or Tammy with the award number. If they go into the JustGrants system and they're able to capture the grant itself and don't see any issues, then that's fine. But still shoot us an email so we can go see, just to make sure the systems are mirroring each other.
Thanks. And I think I'm going to kick this next question to you as well. Okay. If we have not received approval of our budget, are we able to charge the grant in retroactively?
At this point, I would say no, because we would need to see exactly what kind of holds are placed on the award. Some of them can be financial because, like we said, OCFO did not have the opportunity to review any of the budgets due to the transition from GMS to JustGrants, and there could also be programmatic withholdings as well.
Got it. Thank you. The next question, how do we identify and connect with our state policy advisor? I can take this question, Nikisha. Okay. On this tab in the PowerPoint, there was a slide that identified your state. Depending on your state, either Nikisha or Ms. Tammy Lowe will be your advisor. So once we have this up, you'll be able to go back and see whom is your respective advisor, and then you'll be able to reach out that way. And did I miss anything, Nikisha?
No, that's correct.
Thanks. The next question we have, I think I'm going to kick it to Eric. Eric, because of the challenges of JustGrants, I'm very hesitant to get our agency-authorized official set up in there to accept our award. Are there other options?
Unfortunately, there's the authorized representative for the particular award is the one that needs to log into JustGrants to click the award acceptance. And I know there have been some issues with that. Again, it goes back to whether there is a glitch in the system that's preventing it, or if the onboarding process was not done in the proper order. One of the tricky things about the onboarding process is that when the entity administrator for your organization, which is the SAM eBiz point of contact, they need to basically set up roles for the users, including the authorized representative, in a system called Diamond, which then translates over to their access in JustGrants. The problem that we're finding is that when the entity administrator sends that invitation to other individuals, those individuals need to log into Diamond and log back out again, and then the entity administrator needs to then assign the individuals to specific awards and roles. And so in some cases what's happening is that they've not followed that order, and then the assignment is not made in JustGrants. In other cases, what's happening is that there's a glitch, and so we can't always tell what that particular situation is. If you believe you followed that order, and we have a very detailed list that one of our teams in BJA put together, which we can certainly send to you if you'd like, just to see it. It's pretty much just a compilation of all the on the JustGrants website. But if you believe you followed that order and the authorized representative still can't access the grant, then unfortunately that would sound like a technical issue that would need to be reported to the JustGrants support desk. As far as the 45-day award, I would let everybody know that you don't need to worry about that particular award acceptance deadline. The award is going to be available for an indefinite amount of time for you to accept in JustGrants. I would advise you to let your state policy advisor know what the particular situation is with you if you haven't been able to accept it, just so we're aware. But there's no concerns about the 45-day acceptance or the funds, or concerns about the award not being available once you can get access.
Thanks, Eric. Then there seems to be a question, I think I'm going to kick this to you, Nikisha, about when financial data can be entered. One grantee asked, JustGrants help desk told me we can only enter financial data between the 20th and the 30th of the month. Is that true? And if it is true, what if entering in those time frames is not possible?
Okay. I'm going to let Eric answer that one. In reference to, yeah.
Okay. Eric,
I'm not sure what. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm not sure what they're referring to as far as the financial information. Whether you're talking about filling out the federal financial report, which is due quarterly, or whether you're talking about possibly drawing down funds on the award. I'm not sure which one you're referring to. In terms of the final report, the first report for the Justice Mental Health FY20 awards won't be due until January 30th at this point, unless they extend it. So you shouldn't be submitting your federal FFR until after the quarter is completed, obviously. And in terms of drawdowns, the drawdowns are done through a linked system, which is called the ASAP, which is also is linked to JustGrants. And in terms of the drawdowns, unless there's a hold on funds related to the budget clearance or the withholding special conditions, which likely is probably still the case right now because of the delays with budgets, you won't be able to, those are clear, but there aren't any limitations on drawdowns in terms of days other than that the last 3 business days of the month, the system is shut down for drawdowns. So unless I have more information, I'm not sure what that helped it.
Eric, you broke up a little at the end of your response. Can you say that again if possible?
Sure, yeah. I'm sorry, I don't know how much you caught, but basically, I'm not sure what the help done as far as the financial information. The federal financial report will not be due to, and there are no limitations on submitting your federal financial reports. And in terms of submitting a request for a drawdown of funds, that is done through our ASAP system. There are no limitations the last 3 business days of the month for making drawdown requests in ASAP, but you will be prevented from drawing down funds until all the withholding special conditions are removed. But I'm not aware of any other limitations as far as dates to those types of financial information.
Got it. Thanks. The next question I can take, will the Q&A be included in the webinar upload? The entire this entire webinar is being recorded, so that will include the Q&A portion. Our next question, I think I'm going to, maybe Nikisha, you can answer this. Was the order of logging into Diamond and then JustGrants ever discussed in one of the trainings that have been delivered?
Okay. I'm not sure as it relates to anything external. I only know internal. So I'm not sure. Eric, do you know Eric?
Yeah, it was in the there was a diagram that was included in the onboarding training manual that's available on the website, which kind of explains it. I do think it was not explained well at first, and I think they went back and tried to explain that a little better in subsequent communications. But there was a diagram that was in both the internal and external trainings, which shows a step process. And again, if anybody needs that really detailed list of the onboarding stages and processes with the linked information, you can email either Tammy or Nikki. We can send that to you.
Thanks, Eric. We are now at 4:02 and have some time remaining. I just wanted to ask, were there any other questions that you had outstanding? Okay, so we don't have any other questions. It is now 4:03, and we can conclude the webinar now. So I want to thank everyone for joining, all of our grantees. I also want to thank our panelists for being a part. Thanks, everyone. Have a great holiday.
Thank you. You too.
Thanks, everyone.